Good evening, everyone. Good evening from an undisclosed location. Carlos and I are both from the same undisclosed location, even though we're not in the same room. But yeah, we're what 12 hours into Hurricane Hillary here in SoCal. Yeah, we're still alive, so that's a good sign. What's going on with you, Carlos?
Yeah, in fact, right before this broadcast, I had to drive for like an hour, more or less, from
Wow.
one undisclosed location to another in the middle
Oh
of the
well.
storm. So I was a little concerned, but at least I made it back home fine. And I told my supervisors for my teaching job, you know what, I think I shouldn't work tomorrow,
Hmm.
and so they were understanding about it because you never know how things are going to be out here in this type of
Yeah,
weather. I think LA people are just not used to the rain at all.
they're not. Yeah. So like, I actually had a lot of plans today that I canceled because for the same reason. Like I drive in fine. I drive in the rain fine, but a lot of people don't. Like there was a couple times where I saw like cars hit the divider because they're just going too fast and
Damn.
it caused an accident. So yeah, I'm more concerned about other drivers than my driving. But
Yeah,
yeah, if
even on my way here, I saw and well, the result of an accident.
mhm,
A car that was totally crashed. The help had already arrived,
that's
but it
good.
just goes to show, it's
Yeah,
LA.
yeah, yeah. The thing with LA is that it's very flat. So like when it rains, the water gets stuck. It has nowhere to go, and our draining system isn't very good. So it's probably a good thing that it doesn't rain much here.
That's true, and it doesn't help that people sort of like to throw their trash on the ground instead of the trash can for some reason.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it clogs the drainage systems in
That's
certain
true.
areas. But yeah,
That's
so
true.
that's life. But I think that's why we're able to go live right now. We were actually going to talk about a certain topic, right? Self-esteem in person,
Yeah.
and then we decided, hey, why not do it, through a stream? At
Hmm.
first, it wasn't going to be possible because I had to wake up early to work tomorrow, but due to the weather, that's no longer an issue, so that's fine. I
Hmm.
think we could probably explore that topic today, and I think you had some interesting questions about that, some interesting thoughts and insights. Maybe you
Hmm.
could just like, dive into it and see what we can come up with because I think that's something that everybody deals with at some point in their lives, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think we both have really good questions that we can ask one another, and maybe the chat. If we get semi decent active chat tonight. We are on the West Coast. A lot of my audience is on the East Coast, so maybe it's a little bit too late for them, but we'll still have a good conversation. They can watch the replay tomorrow morning, so no worries there. Oh, we got Nova now. Speaking of someone on the East Coast,
Hello,
what up,
Nova.
Nova? How you doing? Thanks for stopping by, my friend. But yeah, I guess we could start a conversation about how would you define confidence or self-confidence or self-esteem in your words.
Well, that I think that's an excellent starting point. And I think we're probably going to be defining a lot of things because, confidence is one term, self-esteem is another term, knowing
Mhm.
yourself is an even bigger term. So
Yep,
I think we're going to tackle through so many different definitions and maybe we could take turns defining it. But I think,
definitely.
self-confidence, of course, is when you don't feel anxiety about what you're doing or
Hmm.
about whether or not you're qualified to do what you're doing. It sort of just flows, right?
Hmm.
It's like when remember when I was taking the
Right.
CELTA program,
Yep. Yep.
which is considered very tough. So I have experience teaching ESL. The other candidates didn't have too much experience, right? So when it came to actually teaching students, that's what you have to do in that program. You have to actually teach students, right?
Hmm.
When I did it, they said that I had so much confidence. What's my secret? And I was thinking about it. Is that what it is? And afterwards, I ran into a quote that sort of makes sense. When you have the experience to back it up, confidence naturally flows from that, right?
Hmm.
Because your confidence then comes from your experience. And obviously, I think that means that in the onset, you're probably not going to have that much confidence, but little by little, you do, right?
Hmm.
So that's my definition of confidence when you sort of act in a way that flows, right? Where you don't really have time to even have anxiety or to doubt yourself because you're so focused in the action of it. And oftentimes that comes from experience because you already know what steps you're going to take in
Mhm.
regards to what actions you're doing, whether it be in the workplace or whatever other context. Like so, your turn. What do you define confidence as?
Yeah, those are really good points for me. I look a little bit differently, which is good because we get different perspectives. And Nova and whoever else, if you're in the live chat, feel free to chime in on how you guys define self-esteem and confidence. But for me, the way
Before you do, dictionary definition of confidence in picture form in a Pictionary would be Nova. Just imagine a picture of
nah,
Nova in
man,
the
nah,
Pictionary. There we go. That's confidence.
nah.
Okay, go ahead. What's
No,
your
I wouldn't
definition?
put Nova as the picture in the dictionary. But for me, I would describe it, or I would say it has a lot to do with preparation. Like for example, like when you prepare for like an exam, Nova says damn right. And then I guess like he's picking you to be the picture definition, Carlos. But yeah, so I would say it has a lot to do with preparation because like whenever for example, like you study for an exam and you feel prepared for it, you're confident they're going to do well. Like for me, I've been in sales for a long time, and one of the biggest indicator of confidence is product knowledge. But that takes a lot of time to prepare, and also you said experience. For me, I would say it's experience too, but I would say more in their form of repetition. Like for example, like basketball players, there's a reason why during practice and before the game they put a lot of shots up. Is so they can develop repetitions. Like let's say if you've done something enough, you know that you've grown you've witnessed, you've experienced like you're like I've been there and I've done this. Rather than if like let's say if you only done it a couple times, you're like I don't know, man. Like you might talk yourself out of it, out of doing it because you haven't actually tried it. But like let's say if you have done something and you've been successful at it, you're more likely to be more confident in doing it rather than for compared to someone who's maybe only done it for a couple times or hasn't done it at all.
Okay, with that in mind, if I could jump in,
Hmm.
would you not say that preparation and practice is another form of gaining experience? It's like an artificial way of creating experience in you in certain aspects of the activity so that at least you're prepared for what you will expect in the actual experience itself. Like in sales, you're probably practicing your pitch, you're
Hmm.
probably informing yourself of the product, you're probably visualizing the scenario. That's still sort of artificially creating a sense of experience within you. So it goes back to what I mentioned earlier, that confidence probably does come from experience. And like to
Hmm.
give an example that you could probably explain to us. Remember that one time that you said you know that store? I bet my friend that I would get the worker's number, and I did. Okay, so could you tell us, how did you get the confidence to go up to that young lady and actually end up with her number?
Hey man, I don't like talking about my dating life on here because people get salty.
It's up to you.
No, no, it's funny you brought that up because yeah, I mean, yeah, I haven't shared that story on the channel, but back in the day, whenever I went to get a bed for my college, not dorm room because it was dorm room, it was like a little studio. The young lady who was selling it to me, she was very attractive. She was my type, and I don't know. I think I had the balls to say like, "Oh, like, do you want to help me break it in? Like, give me your number or something like that." I was like super, but like that wasn't the first thing I told. Like, we have been talking, we have been making small talk, so I developed the conversation for me to be able to say that. She was flirting back and stuff like that, so that's why I felt comfortable saying that. But yeah, I did get her number at the end of the day. But to answer your question, I don't think preparation like can be a substitute for experience. I think they go hand in hand. I think you need preparation to have a chance at being successful um uh during an experience. Because like let's say if you don't prepare, if you don't give yourself the knowledge that you need, then you might not have a good experience, and I think that can hinder your confidence. What do you think?
Well, yeah. I guess the way that I see it, and I agree with you. Like, you can't just, for example,
No,
read
this is John
about
Gone Wild.
John Gone Wild.
What up,
You-
Intel? How you doing, man? Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, you can't just read about basketball, right? About how
Yeah.
to shoot the ball and then not do it and then say, "Oh, that's a substitute for experience." But I would say that preparation or study is a different form of experience, just not the most direct form, right? It adds to it. That's my point of view. And with that young lady, the fact that you've been chatting with her prior to that, that's experience with her.
Yeah.
And that gave you confidence with her, which probably leads back to that definition that confidence comes from experience. But setting that aside, would you like to also discuss how we could define self-esteem? Would you like to define that and then also talk about that?
I mean, do you want to go ahead and start off, and then I'll go afterwards because I want to hear your definition first.
Yeah, no problem. I feel that it's sort of been a buzz term for a very long time. And I
Mhm,
think that it's been a trend. I think there's been a time when self-esteem was not really something too much in the mainstream, right?
mhm,
At some point it became a fad that, oh, you have to, give your kids self-esteem. You have to tell them, good job, buddy. You have to give them participation trophies. You have to make sure that everybody feels proud. Who knows how that really worked out when it came to our generation? I think we grew up with that,
mhm,
probably either that or maybe a little bit of our parents, right? That whole
mhm,
self-esteem thing. Hey, buddy, you could do whatever you want if you put your mind to it. Think positively. Sort of a thing,
mhm.
raising your self-esteem.
Right.
So I guess by self-esteem, the way that I would define it in that context of it being a fad would be basically your ego. And if you're pumping up your ego, you're also making it fragile. Because the very moment that something happens that puts you down, then you wonder, wait, the world said that I was special. Why did I fail at this? I thought I was special. Everybody said I was special. So I think self-esteem could be a very tricky thing, but I would define it as sort of the exterior ego that we all have. How about yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of want to go off of what Nova said because I think he made a good point. Nova said, I think men nowadays are soft, so someone just being direct and firm can seem really confident. Honestly, like I'll leave the comment up because we're gonna talk about it. But honestly, I do think that regardless of someone's soft or not, I think being direct and firm can be a form of confidence because at that point you're prepared or you believe that you're mature enough to handle whatever backlash that can come with it because you're not everyone is receptive to direct and firm feedback. Also, in terms of men being or being soft nowadays, I do think that is an issue. I also think that they're not being raised correctly. I do think a lot of fathers are raising their men very softly. And then also it has a lot to do with society. Like for me, and I've talked to a lot of men my age. I guess like me and Carlos are around the same age, but for me in my 20s, I really struggle with dating. Like not as much as I do now, or I mean, I struggle a lot more than I do now. But I mean, I still and the only reason why I'm using dating as an example because we already started talking about it earlier. But for me, it took a while for me to understand that the BS that society tells men, like, oh, give her flowers and do the right thing. That's for or do whatever's right for her instead of looking out for yourself. I'm not saying like men should treat women like trash or anything like that, but I think that's why we have so many soft guys, and also these are the type of men that women don't really want to date anyway. They're referred to as the nice guy, like the guy that's willing to do anything, and they're like they're willing to like basically put the other person's happiness before theirs. No, no one really likes these people, and I think a lot of men in their 20s learn the hard way. Like for me, I learned the hard way. I realized that society was giving me a bunch of BS, and then it wasn't really until my mid or late to late 20s that I learned about boundaries and all this stuff. I learned I learned the type of person that I need to be rather than whatever society is telling me to become. And no one really told me about that. I didn't have like an older brother or like a mentor to tell me otherwise. So, I had to learn it on my own, and that's why not to plug in my own book, but but like the reason why I'm using this as a visual aid is because this was a turning point in my life. Like I wanted to document my experiences of like basically from the person that I was in college and like right after I graduated from college to the person that I became afterwards. So this book, yeah, it is a book, but for me it's basically it's a turning point of the person that I become. So what do you think, Carlos?
I do remember reading in your book a section about boundaries, right?
Hmm.
And in fact, I have it open right now. I'm looking at chapter 8, experiment with minimalism, stop being a people pleaser. That's chapter 7.
Yep.
And if I could show you some of the highlights, not to, I mean, I guess we are plugging your book and that's fine, but let's look at it briefly and then we'll go back to the main topic.
Definitely.
During my high school and college years, I was a very social person. I wanted to build as many friendships as possible. And then another quote, I've heard some people refer to social media as someone's highlight reel, and I agree with them, which is another interesting quote. Then, words themselves don't mean anything unless we give them meaning. That's why it's important to not give meaning and importance to words from someone whose words are not reflective of their actions. In other words, make sure people are not hypocrites, right?
Hmm.
That they practice what they preach. And yeah, so I would have to agree with Nova also about the fact that men are a little softer nowadays, I feel.
Right.
And also people are
Disagree.
entitled, you know. So people feel entitled like the world owes them. Yeah, that's true, Nova. And I guess from my point of view, I think a lot of the source of this is probably the trend of positive thinking. Now, have you guys heard of The Secret? I think I think her name was Rhonda Byrne or something like that, the author of
Mm-mm.
The Secret. Well, there was a documentary called The Secret that basically said if you think positively and if you continue to think that you already have what you want, you're going to have it. So I think when this became mainstream, this idea of the law of attraction. So a lot of people started thinking, I'm a 10. I'm
Hmm.
I'm a bad B or whatever. I deserve this. I deserve that, hoping
Hmm.
that somehow the universe is going to match that and make them wealthy, make them confident, make them good looking, give them whatever they want. And so they felt entitled to it because they think that if they feel it and they think it, then it happens.
Right.
But it at in the process of that, if they start stepping on other person's boundaries, that's when it becomes toxic, in my point of view, right? So, yes, people do feel more entitled than ever before. There was a homeless man that I said, I'm sorry, I cannot donate. I won't donate this time, maybe in the future. Then, like, it was like 10 minutes of him yelling at me, like calling me all sorts of things. So I think my nephew, he went to New York and he also told the homeless person, I don't think I'll donate. And that basically he got spit in the face.
Wow.
And that's just one segment of society. I think when we look at, a lot of viral videos online, we could see how in general people do feel very entitled. I deserve this.
Hmm.
I am worthy of that. I am the table, sort of a thing. So that's narcissism.
Nova says, dude, so much of that goes on in school now. My daughter starts kindergarten tomorrow, and the amount of positivity, in my perspective, is a bad thing. The world isn't a nice place all the time. Yeah, I agree with that. Do
That's right.
you?
I think
Do you? Sorry. I was gonna say Nova. Do you tell your daughter like negative news, or how do you kind of, or do you combat what she learns in school? Go ahead, Carlos.
yes. I think they don't want children, or in particular men or boys in the school system, to be competitive anymore.
Hmm.
They want to foster a cooperative, equalized environment.
Hmm.
But sometimes certain type of men, and maybe I could qualify myself as fitting into that category, we like ranking systems. We like competition because it's exciting.
It's in our
If-
biology. It's in our
That's right.
DNA.
That's right. And I'm not saying every man is the same. I don't know.
Hmm.
But for those who really do enjoy that competition, who really do like stepping up to challenges, which I believe that's you yourself, John,
Hmm.
then we kind of get energized with that. And if you take that away, then we get depressed. We get demotivated. So I think they're experimenting with this positivity trend. I think it's probably an experiment, and because it hasn't been tested by history, then we don't know what the long-term effects of it are. and if it really will be something constructive or not. I think what really has worked traditionally is basically teaching young men that the world is a struggle, and because the world is a struggle, you yourself have to be strong, you know, and you have to be able to solve problems. That's one way of looking at it.
One of the things that bugs me is that women in society tell men, especially younger men, that oh, you need to be more vulnerable. You need to be open up your emotions and stuff, which I think is fine. But dude, you can't do that to the girl you're dating, because if you do that, then your girl thinks that she thinks that you're not a you're an unfit leader for her, and she's gonna leave you. So if you do want to open up about your emotions and stuff, and I know it sucks that you can't talk about it, with your girlfriend or your wife or whoever, but I would find a therapist, or I would even talk about it with men. Like for my guy friends, I would say, hey, like is everything okay? How you doing? If there's anything you want to talk about, go for it. But yeah, and that's just another example of society lying to men. I think society, and there's not like, or this stream isn't going to turn into like, oh, what are the many ways how society has screwed men over, but yeah, I do think that Nova and Carlos, both you guys made really good points, because I think society, including our education system, is using avoidance as a way to, like, in their minds, they think that that's how you improve someone's mental health, but you're also setting up for failure, because like Carlos said, or I'm sorry, like Nova said, that society in the world isn't always nice to everyone, and so I think people need to be prepared. Back to our point about preparation, and knowledge to for the experience. I think I think we need to prepare both men and women for the world, what the world has to offer, and instead of lying to them and saying that everything is always sunny, and what's that one saying, everything's not sugar and spice, something like that.
Yeah. And I think, just to give my 2 cents, um, I could only speak from the male perspective, right? Because I'm a man. But I would imagine, if I were, for example, if I had a daughter like Nova, then I guess I would emphasize, of course, self-defense and protection, but also testing people, right? Because you want to make sure that you're dealing with people who are serious and who are the best for you, right? So
Right.
maybe, having a talk about how the world is not really black and white, it's shades of gray, and how, we need to see if people really do live up to what they're supposed to be living up to, and who to trust more than, stuff like that. How to basically instill lessons so that children are able to tell right from wrong and safe from unsafe, and what is trustworthy, what is not trustworthy, stuff like that. Values, right?
Yeah, definitely. Nova says we got to keep score. You can't just play for fun. Hey, bro, I don't think you want to smoke. Also, trash talking is healthy too. It's friendly trash talking. We man, we have to have that too. Participate trophy. Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
I
Like, oh,
remember doing
everyone's a winner, even though you're not number one. Everyone's a winner. Like, I don't know. For me, I hate that. I get why they're doing it, but I don't agree with it.
I got a participation medal once
Yeah.
from a wrestling tournament.
Oh
I
wow. How did
wasn't
you feel
able to.
about that?
I felt terrible.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck?
Insult to injury.
It's like a thanks for coming medal sort of
Yeah.
a thing. Like, everybody
Yeah.
gets this one.
Yeah. It's
Like,
stupid.
what the heck's the point?
It dilutes the value of the medal then.
It dilutes my value too, because, like, why did you give this to me? Like, to protect my feelings? Just don't give me anything. Well, at least
how long ago was this?
Back when I was in high school.
So 50 years ago. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, maybe 60. But when I did get a gold medal once,
so
oh
it's
man,
like
I felt proud about that. Yeah.
About 18 years.
Well, okay. Well,
Let's call it 18.
if you really want to know,
Carlos.
it's around 2005. I graduated 2006.
Okay, so 18 years. I was right.
There you go.
So yeah, the only reason why I'm trying to figure it out is because they've been giving participation trophies for 18 years, guys. It's not new. That's unfortunate.
It's not new, but it was still a time when people would let's see, what does it say here?
Nova says they shall just give the real winner a different looking medal. I agree. I hope they do.
They did. At that point, there was still a sense of hierarchy. You know,
Yeah.
if you didn't do well, your teammates, your opponents, they would let you know. You know, they were
Yeah.
really upfront about it. If you weren't doing your best, your coach, they would make a big deal about it. It wasn't like, "Hey, how are you doing, buddy? Do you want to
Yeah.
talk about how your performance today?" Or like, "God damn, why did you miss that shot?" It's something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like I benefited a lot from wrestling in hindsight. During
Right.
when I was in that sport, I'm all like, oh man, I can't wait for season to be over. This is hell. All the other teams don't have to work as hard as we do,
Right.
and they get more glory. But anyways, that's
Right.
something else.
No, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I really hate the whole participation trophy era because for me, if I lose, that just motivates me to get better. And obviously, you're not going to win all the time, and you're not going to lose all the time either. So, you gotta know that as long as you put the work in there, you'll win. I think that's what makes winning awesome. Not the fact that I don't think it's the medal. I think it's like just experiencing the feeling of being victorious, and just that the fact that you put in the preparation and time to come out on top.
And wouldn't you say that the pain of defeat also has its value, right?
It does, yeah. That's what I was referring to because like when Kobe, or I don't know about Michael Jordan, but Kobe and a lot of other really good players, like when they would lose, they would go back into the gym, put up more shots like right after the game, or even if they didn't do that, they would spend more time working on their craft because you don't learn as much from winning than when you do it losing. So losing is a very powerful tool.
That's right. And so after that, then you do get self-esteem
Yeah,
when you see yourself improve. And I mean self-esteem in the sense of confidence, right?
right.
Uh,
Oh
so
snap!
how
We got Yos Malone in the house. What's going on, Yos? Is Pedro's live finally over? It's good morning over there where you're at. It's like, oh no, wait, you're on Central Time, so it's what 11:45 there. Yos Malone is he's in a Kansas City area, so I think it's oh, it's not over yet. Okay, I know you have to work early tomorrow, so thanks to stop by, Yos. Appreciate it.
Thanks for stopping by. Yeah. So we just spoke about confidence, self-esteem. What was the other one? Self-love or what?
Self worth, self love. I hate that term, by the way. There's got to be a better term.
Well, first of all, we have to ask ourselves, do we really know ourselves, right?
Hmm.
What are we?
I would have went up here and I would say, do we value ourselves today? Not as we as in like oh just me and you, but like as men. Or I would say what I would throw I would include women there as well. Do we as a society, as people of society, value ourselves?
I agree, but I think before we get to that point, which we should and we will, how about we try this? John McCallion, who are you?
I don't know, who am I?
That's the point. How can you love yourself if you don't know yourself? See? Once
I
you
would
have an
say
answer,
I would say I know myself, but for me, like I'm not really good at talking about myself. So like whenever that interview question comes up, tell me about yourself. I always struggle with that one. I would say like okay, basically like if I were to sum myself up in one sentence, I would just say this is just gonna have a bunch of buzzwords because I didn't really have time to think about this one. But I would just say I'm a really fucking awesome guy who works his ass off, but he's also very social and personable in social settings.
okay, those are traits.
Right.
If those traits were different, would you no longer be John McCallion?
I don't know.
Seriously, think about that.
Yeah. Yo says it was an old sub teacher of mine that said love thyself. It took me 20 years to understand what he meant. Yeah, you're probably a lot younger, so as you grew into an adult, it made more sense. You can't love. Yeah, exactly. As cliche. What do you think about this, Carlos? Do you think it's true? I think it's true. You can't
Absolutely.
love others unless you're happy with yourself.
Absolutely. It goes both ways. It doesn't make sense for it to go one way. And I think there's a deep truth, philosophical truth in that. So, do you want to continue to explore who you are, or should we just put that aside? But let me just tell you, unless you're able to answer that, then there's no building on top of that. There's no adding love or confidence or whatever else we're talking about.
How about you? How about why don't you say why don't you tell us who you are?
Okay, then I will gladly do so. So, because my traits can vary, right?
Mm-hmm.
My traits, my personality, when I was a child, teenager to now, it changes. I cannot say I'm an outgoing. I cannot say these traits and say that's me. No, because that changes all the time. I cannot say that I am my name because my family could have named me something else and I would still
Mm-hmm.
be myself. I
Right.
cannot say I'm my nationality because if for whatever reason I would have been born someone else, that doesn't change who I am either,
Mm-hmm.
right? I cannot say the list goes on and on of things that cannot really define who I am.
Right.
But the one thing that if this one thing was gone, I would no longer exist or be is consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So consciousness is the ability to perceive. It's basically what makes you alive.
Right.
Now, do we agree or not? Humans have
I would
consciousness.
agree. Yostas, he's giving you your as a kid side nowadays your flowers. He's giving you props.
Oh, he's giving me flowers.
Yeah, that's
He's
that. Yeah, that's what kids say nowadays. Like he's giving you credit for what you're saying.
Oh, I thought he said I was in another planet. That's fine. I would love to
Yeah,
be in Mars. Okay, but here's the thing.
or
Can
Japan.
just for fun, can we agree that human beings in general, if you're alive, you have consciousness?
I agree.
Okay. Do we agree then that plants or animals have consciousness?
I don't think so.
Okay, then how do they move if they don't know where they're going?
That's a good question. I don't know.
That's fine. Let's keep it with humans. All right, humans have
Yeah.
consciousness. All right, you and I have consciousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are both able to perceive. So if you reduce ourselves to the most basic and essential thing that we have, it's consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
which many philosophical and spiritual traditions define as the soul. And the more you focus on it, at that
Yostas plants
point,
are alive.
there we go. So we agree, Mr. Malone, right?
I think he prefers Yost.
Right, right. Okay,
Nova
there we go.
says I'd say animals yes, but plants not. At least not on a level we can comprehend. Okay.
Right.
The world is interconnected, connected. Okay.
There we go. See, that's the point. All right. So then if
Just
you're
one.
able to find that consciousness within yourself, and then I see it in John, I see it in Just Malone, I see it in Nova, I see it in everyone else. Malone.
Yo says you can call him Mr. Malone.
So at that point, if you're able to love yourself because you understand who you are, and you realize that you're no different from the guy in front of you because he is also a conscious being, then you
Yeah.
automatically love him or her or whatever pronoun they choose.
Right.
And at that point, that's true positivity, that's true self-confidence, that's true self-esteem, blah, 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 beyond what society is throwing at us. All these
Right.
artificial labels that are meaningless and trendy and whatever else and change all the time according to whatever they want to do. But yeah, so that's a millennia. And I think this type of knowledge is millennia old. But at some point, we can understand it beyond the intellectual level and at a more profound level. But that's something else. Okay, does that answer the question?
I think so too. Yeah, it does.
There we go. So that's my answer.
Yeah, it's just, this can get like real deep and very philosophical. Hmm.
Sorry, that's I think that's the only way I can talk about it, to be honest.
No, it's okay. The reason why I asked that question is because as I talk to more and more people, I think a lot of people don't really value themselves. I think social media has a lot to do with it. I think a lot of people, as they scroll and see their, quote unquote friends on these fancy vacations that they put on a credit card or like, new cars, marriages, and they kind of compare it to their lives. They're like, hey, like, like I'm not living my best life. I'm not accomplishing what it is that I need to. By the way, we have a special guest, Mr. Malone himself. Good evening, Mr. Malone.
Yo,
Mr.
I
Malone.
should be in bed right now, but
I
your
know,
boy
it's okay.
Carlos is speaking mad facts right now.
Thank you.
Talk to us.
So here's the thing, man. There's a big thing going on right now about like manifestation. I'm sure you probably heard of it, Carlos, haven't you? Like,
Yes.
you know, you got your manifestation. People talking about these angel numbers. There's a glitch, all this stuff. I know you're like, where's this dude going at? I kind of got a little. Things are legal in Missouri, and so my mind can get elevated at times. But anyways, things are like the only true things that are factual is like math. Math does not change. 2 plus 2 is always gonna be 2. Numbers are like things are interconnected, man. Like, you know, it's talking about plants and stuff. You know, there's been trends going around, and you know, people like, hey, tree, if you can hear me, touch me. And there's like, I even did it, and like literally, bro, the tree moved. It's crazy. Like, it's a living and breathing thing. It may not be able to talk to us. I have my cat next to me. She can't talk to me, but she can sense how I am. She can sense if I'm in a good mood or not. So things are more interconnected than what we want to be made on to believe.
Yeah.
I agree as well. And to add to that, I think what we sometimes ask ourselves. So how can we build more self-esteem and self-confidence and self-love and all that stuff? And I think maybe meditation is a good way to do it,
Mm-hmm.
because when you meditate, you separate yourselves from what you're not, right? Your name, your labels, whatever, and you get more connected to what you really are, which is consciousness. And at that point, you're able to, at least from experience, I could tell you, I could feel more love, not only for myself, but for everything around me. It's like, wow, I feel like I'm not different from the things that are around me. Because,
Right.
like you said, Mr. Malone, it's everything's connected, right?
Hmm.
So I would say,
I
yeah, meditation.
I 100% agree. I haven't really got into meditation, and there's a guy I ran with a little, not saying I was like completely friends, and he talked about like consciousness and how like I if I would have known it, I would have found him and got him on here. He would have been a perfect guest for you. He like wrote a
Mm.
book on like consciousness and stuff, and so he's like known here in Kansas City for it, which is crazy. I wish I would have known, man. I would have got him on for you. But anyways, I
His name's
digress.
not Jeb Thomas Black, is it?
No, it's not. His
Okay,
name
good.
was what was his name now? Nelson L. That was his name. That's his
Okay.
name. I haven't talked to him in a minute, but I'm sure if I hit him up, he told me one day. You know, here's what's funny. I used to work in a cell phone store, and it was in like Kansas, which is, you know, I live in Kansas City, Missouri, but Kansas City, Kansas is like, you know, right over the river. We this
Mhm.
random cell phone store. He came in and got a phone, and he told me, said, "Hey, I'm gonna see you again one day." I was like, "Yeah, right." You know, people are like, "Yeah, right." Dude, I crap you not. He saw me like probably a year later and said, "I told you I was gonna see you again." It's
Was it the same
crazy.
location?
No, completely different location. I was like,
Wow.
completely different job. He knew somebody that I worked with.
Maybe he's stalking you.
No, it was weird. It was completely unintentional, and I don't think it was an act. You know, it's just like consequence. I'm not saying coincidences happen. You're like, that's not going to happen, and it does. Like, you know, when you're like, okay, I probably shouldn't do this. This is what's going to happen, and you can see it. You tell yourself like, oh, that's probably not like, say with the Dodgers or something. You're like, well, so and so's going to come in the game. We're probably going to lose,
Hmm.
and what happens? You guessed it. It may not happen that day. Maybe it happened tomorrow, but it's just weird how coincidences happen. You can kind of see yourself like, I didn't know I can guess the future sometimes. It's just a weird thing.
I think it's more about manifestation than guessing the future,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of weird because like I used to work this job and I had a horrible boss. He ended up letting me go, and that's the only job I've ever lost. But I actually saw him twice after that in like in random areas. Like one of them was at I think it was Best Buy. I was returning something, and he was waiting in line for there. And I saw him. I didn't talk to him. And then one time, my friends and I went out. We went out for my birthday, and he ended up being the Uber driver Like it was something that I can't even make up or like even imagine. It's crazy. So I think you're onto something.
Yeah, I didn't like that. I didn't get in the beginning of the stream, but you know, it's crazy to this whole movement of like things being interconnected, consciousness is kind of like, I'm not saying it's a newer thing. It's something I
Yeah.
haven't personally discovered. I can't speak for everybody else, but you know, it's something that's like, okay, what's beyond me?
Hmm.
Like, who is me? What's beyond me? And do I need to discover something? Am I, we're all in this world like, hey, what is gonna be? I can speak for me. What's my next move? Or should
Right.
I be fine with where I'm at? You know?
Right.
But, yeah.
What do you believe that you should do?
Personally, I'm
Yeah.
like, I see now you got your boy Yost talking now. Um,
I know that's the
I
point.
like my job. I like being in banking, but I think where I'm at now is I want to be somewhere else within the whole banking industry. Or they're
Yeah.
like, hey, do I want to go into business myself and put more time in my YouTube channel?
Right.
But then you have things that happen with, Pedro's live and people coming after him because he's a top YouTuber. And it's just like,
Hmm.
do I want to even want to deal with that? Is YouTube even something I really want? I just like interacting with all the people I've met so far. So
Hmm.
it's like, and I think we live in a society to where like, oh, if you don't have a house by this time, you're not doing things right. If you don't have
Right.
kids by this time, you're not doing things right. Or if you don't
Right.
have this, what's this book that we all have to abide by? I
Hmm.
think if people are happy where they're at and you're like, hey, I may have a goal in the next 20 years to hopefully be able to retire or have a goal in the next 20 years to lose weight. I mean, just different things. Like I think as I mentioned to kind of bring it all to circle, I think if you get yourself good and you bring positive energy, I think good things will happen. And I think we live in a society where people don't, you always, if you look at the news, it's always negative. There's never any good news out there. They always
Well,
have something, and if you put yourself in that mindset of something negative, and it just doesn't bring positive results. I'm telling you, I just tried it this past week. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna be positive. Good things are gonna happen. I say it every day. I'm like, I'm gonna do this, this, and this today, and it happens. Like it's the craziest thing. Just changing my mindset on what I want. I'm like, this
hmm.
is what I want to do. Like I'm going on a trip in 3 weeks, and I need to make X amount on the gig work apps.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I need to do this. I'm gonna do it. We're gonna make it happen. And man, oh man, I've had the best week. I mean, bro, I made $67 off of one order,
Wow.
like just dumb stuff. And it's like, why is it's like good things are happening? And I'm
Because you're
like,
thinking
what
positively, you're bringing positive energy to your life.
I'm bringing it. And I'm like, you know what? And then you have that also that little negative in your mind, like, okay, when's the other shoe gonna drop?
Right.
And you're like, why can't things just be good?
Hmm.
Like, I think I deserve it. I feel I deserve it. I've been busting
Hmm.
my butt. It's like, okay, things are finally coming to fruition. But anyways, y'all can keep going. My bad.
No, it's okay. Before you leave, I just wanted to ask: do you think people have, or do you think people know their value? Do you think a lot of people view themselves in a positive light, or do they lack confidence?
Ooh,
I know it's a loaded question, but
no, 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 no.
give
That's a
us like your
very
2 minute take.
no, no, no. That's a very good question. I feel so. You're saying like, do you think people view themselves in a positive light, or like how they
Positive or
look at
negative
themselves?
light? Yeah, exactly. In the age of social media.
I think more times than not, it really depends on what app you're on.
Hmm.
So, for example, I have seen on Facebook, it's a little bit of an older crowd. It's the
Right.
people that don't really that's their social media. They're not on Instagram. They may be on They may have an account on Instagram, but they're not on Instagram hardcore. Or they're not on Twitter or X hardcore. They're not on YouTube. They're on Facebook. They post like, "Hey, I just had a kid. Hey, I just had that." And then you have so and so classmate over here that didn't do anything. You're like, well, what is that person doing that I'm not doing?
Right.
I feel people are. I know it's kind of a cliche to say you're a product of what your environment is.
Mm-hmm.
Some folks may not agree with that. I'm a person that's like, if you're around folks who aren't bringing those good things to your life, you need to find somewhere else. I know a lot of people sometimes feel very lonely in this age.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can literally order a pizza off my phone. I can do my taxes off my phone. And yet, you know, you can join YouTube lives. You can do all that off your phone. But yet people are more lonely than ever now.
Yeah.
How does that work? I have access. I'm literally talking to you from Missouri and you're in California.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't have my face on
Don't
there.
tell it we're undisclosed location. No, I'm just kidding.
But I'm just like, you know, I think the age of social media has been a good thing because I would never ever connected with you or Carlos or Nova or Pedro. I would never connect with y'all if we didn't have tools such as this. So I think it's a good thing. But overall, I think if people lived within themselves and say, okay, well, I'm not happy with where I'm at. There's tools out there. I think people don't like to ask for help, which is a big thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I think people feel like, oh, well, you know, I'm lonely because I have this job, but I'm not making enough money. I can barely pay my bills or, you know, and then you see someone on social media, oh, they just went on vacation somewhere. You're like, what? How this happen? You know, it's just, like I said, it's a product of your environment. And I think a lot of times people don't view themselves positively or talk themselves up. You know, a lot of us grew up when, you know, we grew up in a time, I think you and I are around the same age, that you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be bragging on yourself.
Right.
I don't know if I know I was like, you shouldn't be boasting. I think boasting is the right word, but it's okay to talk about yourself. It's okay to talk about some of your accomplishments. You bust your butt for it. So, but overall, I think people aren't necessarily happy with themselves because of the X, Y, and Z, that thing that they may see on social media. I always encourage people, if you think it's on there, take it out your life. Don't be on Facebook. I did like a month-long cleanse off of Facebook. I don't get on there as much anymore because I found myself being super negative towards things that didn't even matter.
That's true. I deactivated my account again. I usually do it like a few times a year, so I deactivated my account today. I wasn't getting any value out of it either.
It's absolutely, and it's one of those things that's like, well, I need to use it sparingly because, you know, different things, like my brakes went out on my car. Like my brakes, I need new brakes. I need to go to the shop or find X dude that works on brakes, and this dude fixes off of Facebook. It's like it's a great tool for things like that. And I'm like, I use it as a tool now. I don't use it as my social media. All my social media is like on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter at Yeltsin Malone, TikTok, YouTube. You know, you can follow me in those places. I'm there more active there. I'm not as active on Facebook. And, you know, Facebook is one of those things like more personal. Like, you really only going to get those people that you're going to know. Or, you know, there's a few people that I've met online that I've added on there, but it's more personal. But anyways.
Right. Well, I appreciate you stopping by, man. I know you got to get up early in the morning, so thanks for coming by and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you for having me on. Carlos, keep spitting those facts to this young man over here. He needs it. All right, I'll talk to y'all soon.
All right, see you. He dropped a lot of gems on us. Do you have any thoughts about that, Carlos, about some of the stuff that he shared?
Yeah, I think it's wonderful how you mentioned about that, you know, sort of coincidence that's not a coincidence, that maybe you could view it from one way or another, right? And about how his thinking affected his performance, right? In the delivery. I sometimes I notice that in my life too, right? When I think about, why did that go well? What was I doing before? And it does have something to do with the way that I'm thinking and imagining things. But I feel like I still need to sort of really learn that lesson. I understand it in my head, but I haven't really, you know, internalized it completely. So I'm in that awkward phase when I'm like trying to figure it out. But I guess he was able to really, you know, digest that sort of lesson and really apply it to his life. So I think that's wonderful. Yeah,
definitely. And I like how he talked about, whenever you think positively, positive things happen. Whenever you think negatively, negative things happen. And that's something else that I wrote about in my book. You become your thoughts. So if you have negative thoughts, then you become a negative person and you give off negative energy. Whenever you become a positive person, you get positive things out of life. So I do agree with that, and I think a lot of people refer to that as a manifestation nowadays. It's all about what you manifest in life.
Yeah, but I think there might be a little bit of a caveat. Like, for example, in Mr. Malone's case, he did the thinking, then he acted, right?
Right.
That might be different from somebody who says, "Oh, I'm perfect. I'm the table. I'm the 10," but then doesn't do anything.
Yeah. I do agree with that. That's what I was referring to. How, like, if you, because when I learned this a long time ago. Basically, the way you think, it affects your behavior, your thoughts, the choices you make, the decisions you make, and things like that. So, I do agree with you guys on that one.
Right. So I think we touched upon confidence, self-esteem, our identity, self-love, positive thinking. Did we touch upon all the topics we wanted to go into, or anything that we sort of, and did we go into it all?
I still feel like there's one missing. I would say, we could. I think a lot of, one of the things that I was thinking about whenever Yosa was speaking facts. He was talking about, like, how we can order food on our phone, and I think a lot of people are lonely. I think a lot of that also has a lot to do with the way we see ourselves. We're not very social, like like we used to be before the internet, before smartphones. Because for me, I'm very extroverted, so if I'm not around people, I'm not my best self. Like I'm not getting energy off of them, and so I'm more a lot with we because the things that when we interact with other people, basically it registers in our brain as, like, we're worthy of being accepted and being around other people. So I think not being around other people also negatively impacting our self-esteem. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you and I were blessed to come from a time before social media and apps.
Yeah.
I remember when I didn't even have a cell phone, then I had a flip phone, or one of those with the physical keyboard, right? Man,
Yeah.
those batteries lasted forever, like for like 3 or 4 days before I had to charge them because I didn't
Yeah.
have to use any apps or
The
anything.
Nokia phones with the ones that would play Snake on it.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
those were good days, actually. I think I was happier before all these apps and stuff.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. Do you think that the fact that we're lonelier, we're connected, we're digitally connected than ever before, but we're lonelier than ever before? Do you think that also has an impact on our mental? Well, I know it has an impact on our mental health, but what do you think on our confidence?
Well, I would like to explore it this way. Remember back in the old days when somebody had a desktop, right?
Yeah.
Not everyone had a desktop, and imagine that person was basically, the internet was different back then. It was mainly forums, right? Mainly text based, maybe a picture here and there and whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like, imagine you knew someone who basically after school went straight to the computer and started, either typing in HTML or exploring all these GeoCities websites, right?
Right.
What would you call that person?
I would call them a digital explorer.
Yeah. But I think a derogatory term that was used back then would be
Nerd.
sort of like a geek or a nerd,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. And these people, were they known for being social, or were they known for being awkward?
No, they were socially awkward.
Socially awkward. Okay. And that's probably because they were interacting with the machine more than with people, right? Not
Right.
getting enough experience with people. Okay. So that's easy to visualize because we're talking about a desktop. But look at this. This is a computer. Would you agree?
I agree.
It's a computer that fits in your pocket. Now, when you have everybody staring at a screen for most of the day, that's basically doing the same thing as that nerd in our metaphor.
Right.
So we are all turning into those socially awkward nerds.
Damn, man, you're on fire tonight. That's a really good point. I never thought about that.
Right. So if we're all socially awkward, if we're not interacting with each other, and we trick ourselves into thinking we're being social by posting on Instagram or whatever,
Hmm.
that's not the same as actually being face to face with people.
Right.
And like any muscle, unless you exercise it, it's going to, what's the word, atrophy? It's going to become weaker.
I'm not sure what the word is, but I guess we can use deteriorate.
Well, you're going to be a personal trainer. You have to know all these technical terms.
I'm not there yet.
Well, you're gonna be there, so you've got to
Yeah.
start learning now. Anyway, so
that's
that's the thing.
another live stream, not this live stream.
Yeah, and plus, like, remember the Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. He defines
Yeah.
the ego as the pain body, which is fed by negative emotions. If the news and if social media keeps showing you negative stuff, in order to keep the ego alive, right?
Right.
Basically, by making you boastful, prideful, all these 7 sins, which are metaphors for decadence, right? So all these negative things going on due to our abuse, not use, abuse of technology, then of course I think we can expect people to sort of have negative effects in their own personal lives and society in general to also manifest those in, for example, the male loneliness epidemic,
Mhm.
or what else? The unrealistic beauty standards, or even body positivity can be toxicity as well because it
Yeah.
promotes a lack of exercise and discipline and whatever else. So that's why I guess in my personal life I like to read books more. I like to read physical books because I feel that they are probably more productive. I can't really explain why, but I do feel like my life is better when I spend time consuming printed content than a lot of these online entertainment things. I don't say I never get into apps, but the less the better. In fact, let's say for example, if you go to Facebook, if you ignore the feed, then it's not as addicting anymore. You just post, "Hi everyone," you leave, and then you
Mhm.
check to see if anyone commented and you leave, so you don't waste hours on it.
Yeah,
My
that's
take about it.
yeah, that's very true. For me, yeah, I just deactivate my Facebook because I don't know. I won't be tempted to use it unless I reset my password again and get a new one. So I kind of made it difficult for me to use Facebook again. But Carlos, you made a lot of really good points tonight. Is there anything that you would like to share before we close out and wrap up the stream?
No, thank you everybody for watching this stream. I hope it was wonderful. I hope you had fun, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of your week as well, everyone.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you to Yost, thank you to Nova, Intel Wild, everyone who joined tonight. If you guys got some value out of this stream, definitely hit the like button. That'll be greatly appreciated. It'll help out the channel for sure. And if you're watching this later, or if you're watching a replay, don't forget to type hashtag replay crew or team replay, whatever, to let me know you guys watched. And we can even get a discussion started down there. So share your thoughts in the comment section if you're watching a replay, and we'll have a discussion there. But thanks again for everyone who stopped by tonight, and we'll catch you guys next one. Peace.